Hello, and welcome to a special part two of our author readings for When Words Collide. My name is Leslie Lefebvre, and I'm honored to be the MC tonight. So, due to an unexpected and unfortunate scheduling issue, which does happen with conferences, one of our guests of honor was unable to do a reading last night, but we are lucky that Phillippi Ryan is here. She's in the green room right now. I can kind of see her on a little monitor there, and she's preparing to do a reading for you today. So, without further ado, you're here to see Hank. And so, what I want to do is I'm just going to read her bio and introduce her, and then bring her up onto the stage to do a reading. Just remember that during the reading, you can leave comments, you can ask questions, and when we finish the reading, I'll ask questions from the live audience as well. And I have a couple questions I'm going to want to ask myself. So, without further ado, let's introduce us to Hank Phillippi. Hank Phillippi Ryan is the USA Today best-selling author of 14 psychological thrillers, winning the genre's most prestigious awards, 5 Agathas, 4 Anthonys, and the coveted Mary Higgins Clark Award. She's also an investigative reporter for Boston's WHDH-TV, winning 37 Emmys. Book reviewers call her a master of suspense and superb and gifted storyteller. The First to Lie garnered a Publishers Weekly starred review and was nominated for the Anthony Award for Best Novel and Mary Higgins Clark Award. Her current thriller, Her Perfect Lie, received starred reviews from Kirkus and Publishers Weekly, which called it a superlative thriller. It is now an Agatha nominee for Best Novel of the Year. Watch for The House Guest, coming in 2023. Hank, welcome to the virtual stage here. Great to see you.
You too, Mark. That was quite the graphic. I absolutely love it. It's so much fun to be here. And thank you for putting up with my crazy schedule. It's just nonstop.
It happens. And again, it's like if this were a live conference, things would have happened. You could have been caught in traffic. You would have been going from one panel to a presentation and got stuck in the hallway. So
we all know the deal, but I'm so happy that you all are here tonight. And I can't wait to read for you and to answer your questions. I don't know, no, only non-controversial questions, Mark, okay? This is not the investigative reporter element of the show, right? I'm so glad to see you.
I will filter for you. Okay, so cool. I'm going to let you take the stage. I'm going to go hide in the green room, and people can enjoy your reading.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. And welcome to all of you. I'm so pleased to see you all here tonight. You know what I'm going to do is turn off my air conditioner because I'm hoping that is, there we go. That's a little bit quieter, and I hope you can hear me a little bit better. As Mark said, I'm Hank Phillippi Ryan. I'm the USA Today bestselling author of 13, going on 14 novels of suspense. And my brand new thriller is Her Perfect Life, which, as Mark said, got starred reviews from Kirkus and from Publishers Weekly. And ooh, as an author, those are the wonderful moments of your life when you work on something for so long, and then the people who know what they're talking about say, yay, good job. And I'm really happy about that. So what I want to do tonight is read you a little bit from Her Perfect Life. You can see, oops, this way, the cover so casually displayed behind me. And then I'd love to take your questions. I spent this morning teaching a 3-hour masterclass for the convention. And I hope some of you who were here this morning are here right now to listen to a little bit of my novel. And if you hear my voice being a little bit scratchy, that's because this morning at this convention, I talked for 3 hours in a row. That is unprecedented, but I hope you had a wonderful time. So let me tell you briefly what we're going to be hearing about in Her Perfect Life. There was a game on Twitter that said, can you describe your book in 5 words? So I thought, well, that's easy. Of course I can do that. And it turned out that it wasn't so easy. But after some contemplation, I came up with the 5 words that describe Her Perfect Life. And those are sisters, betrayal, guilt, fame, and revenge. Sisters, betrayal, guilt, fame, and revenge. And you can see in a thriller how those 5 words might just go together. And then there was a game on Facebook. You can see how hard I work. There's a game on Facebook that said, can you describe your novel in 5 phrases? So I thought, okay, I can do that. So her perfect life is a beloved TV reporter whose fans have given her the hashtag Perfect Lily. Number two on that list, number one, Perfect Lily, and Perfect Lily has a deep, dark secret. So hashtag Perfect Lily, the reporter, has a deep, dark secret. Number two is a missing college student, and that is not the secret. Number three is an anonymous source. Number four is a passionate clandestine weekend in Aspen. And number five is a child's little pink suitcase that is inexplicably empty. So those are the five things you need to know about her perfect life. Basically, her perfect life stars Lily Atwood, a beloved television reporter in Boston, so beloved that her fans have given her the hashtag, as I said, Perfect Lily. And Perfect Lily seems to have everything. She has fame, she has fortune, she has Emmys. She's the single mom to an absolutely adorable 7-year-old daughter named Rowan. But Lily also has a deep, dark secret. And it seems like from phone calls she's getting from an anonymous person, it seems like someone knows this dark secret and it is about to tell it. And if this person tells the secret, that is career ruining for Lily, that is life ruining for Lily. That absolutely cannot happen. The problem is that everyone knows who Lily Atwood is. Of course, she spends her life in the spotlight. Everyone knows who Lily Atwood is, and that may be the problem. Because how do you keep a secret when you're always in the spotlight? And Lily soon learns that the spotlight may be the most dangerous place of all. So like every Hank Phillippi Ryan thriller, it's a cat and mouse novel. Two smart women facing off in a high-stakes psychological cat and mouse game to prove their truth about a devastating childhood betrayal. But which character is the cat and which character is the mouse? And that is the essence of her perfect life. And I'm going to read you two little sections of her perfect life tonight, because I don't like to read the beginning chapter 1, because then when you go to the bookstore and pick up this book, and I hope you will, no pressure, it's just my livelihood, you'll feel like you've read it before. So I'm going to read a little bit of the prologue. I'm going to read the prologue, and then I'm going to go forward to chapter 7 without any spoilers, and let you get a little bit of the feel of the book and how it's written. And then I'd love to take some questions for you. So here is the prologue of her perfect life. They say you can't choose your family, but if you could, I would have still chosen Cassie. She was my big sister, and everything she did was perfect. Her perfect dark hair, which curled or didn't, depending on what Cassie wanted. She had perfect friends and perfect dates and whispered phone calls, and boys came to pick her up in their cars. She got to wear lipstick. Once, when I sneaked hers and tried it, she caught me. She didn't even laugh or yell or tell on me. But when Cassie went away to college that year, something changed. She came home for winter break, but stayed in her room. My mother and I couldn't figure out what she was doing. Cassie would come out only to make cups of coffee, then stare out the window at our snow-dappled backyard, at the pond where she'd try to teach me to ice skate, and at the big sycamore tree where we'd once found a huge hornet's nest that fell in a summer wind. I'd picked it up and wanted to save it for show and tell, but Cassie screamed and told me it was full of bugs. She grabbed it from me and one stung her. She didn't even cry. We had a dog, too, a dear and dopey rescue named Pooch. Cassie never liked the name, but our dad did. And then Dad died, and Cassie never wanted to change Pooch's name again. When she left for college, Mama kept her room just the way it was, with all her stuffed animals and souvenirs and photographs, and didn't let me move from my little bedroom into her bigger one. Cassie was always the favorite, and I always thought of it as her right. That first college winter vacation, my mother found a notebook, one of those black ones with the white dots on the cover. She opened it to the first page. I saw her face change. Without a word, Mama turned the notebook to show me. Cassie had drawn a calendar with carefully ruled pencil lines spaced equally apart. November, then December. She crossed off the days, each one with an X in black marker. Poor Cassie, Mama said to me. I remember how soft her voice was, carrying an undercurrent of worry or sorrow. I wonder what day she's waiting for. This is not the work of a happy person. I know, I'd agreed, nodding sagely, though at age 7 I didn't really know. It was almost as if Mama wasn't talking to me, but just to herself. I do remember how I felt then, even remember my eyes widening in fear of things, dark things or scary things under the bed or in the closet, things that kids' imaginations, if they're lucky, conjure as murky, vanishing, forever far away nothings, things that come in the night, visitors. My mother's worry was contagious too, a chronic disease I have yet to conquer. Mama, what do you think is wrong with Cassie? And then Cassie was gone. The police said they searched and looked for her, even said they tried to make sense of the calendar she'd left behind. My mother got sicker and sicker waiting for her. Years later, I went off to college myself. By then, Pooch had died. Mama eventually died too, never knowing. And then there was only me. What happened to Cassie? I imagined her dead, of course. I imagined her kidnapped, imprisoned, hidden, brainwashed, indentured, enslaved, made into a princess, transported by aliens to their faraway planet. I saw her in grocery stores, on book covers, in the backgrounds of movies, a lifted shoulder or sunlight on a cheekbone, that little dance she did when she was happy. Once I saw the back of her head 3 rows in front of me on a plane from Boston to New Orleans and leaped out of my seat with the seatbelt still on. But it wasn't her dark hair and not her thin shoulders, not her quizzical smile after my lame, "Oh, I thought I knew you," excuse. We were too far apart in age, I guess, to have that sister connection some people talk about, the sense of knowing where the other is or when they're upset. Sure, she was my only big sister, but she was already wrapped up in her own concerns, and I was a goofy little kid, and my sibling worship didn't have time to evolve into mystical bonding. Was she still alive? I still have a picture of her and Pooch, the one that Dad took with his camera that wasn't a phone. The almost sepia rectangle of daughter and dog is faded now and cracking with old-fashioned, wavy, once white edges. The original one is in my apartment, and the copy thumbtacked to the bulletin board over my desk at Channel 6. At some point, you have to stop looking, I told myself. But still, if she did something truly bad, how much would I want to know? How would that knowledge change my life, my career? Maybe it's better for me to pretend she never existed. But I know she did exist. Sometimes it feels like she still comes to me in my dreams, this time asking me to find her. So I couldn't help but imagine that, approaching her, confronting her, gently, gingerly, or standing in her line of sight to see if there was a glimmer. Would I even recognize my big sister after all this time? I was 7 when she vanished, and Cassie was 18. So maybe not. Or maybe she'll recognize me. Maybe she'll find me. And that is the prologue. Now, I don't want to take up too much time with reading from my novel if you don't want to hear more, but I'm happy to read you a little bit of chapter 7. Mark, I know you're in the green room. Do you think I should go on if you are there to give me a comment or a push, or shall we just chat a little bit?
I would love to hear a little bit of chapter 7, and I'm positive that the audience would love to hear a little bit because we're on the edge of our seats. Let's give us a little bit more of a taste here.
All right, that's great. Thank you for the guidance. And here is chapter 7. And here's what you need to know to understand chapter 7. My chapters are very short. Someone has sent Lily a bouquet of flowers, and she doesn't know who has sent these lilies. Greer is her producer. Thank you, Sandy. Greer is her producer. And she is waiting for a call from a source called Mr. Smith. Sandy was in my class this morning. Welcome today. And she is very, very talented, and I can't wait to read her book. Meanwhile, here is chapter 7 from Her Perfect Life. And you remember Rowan is her 7-year-old daughter. Lily had watched Rowan walking all the way up the wide cobblestones to the imposing front doors of the Graydon School, regretting for the millionth time that she couldn't allow her daughter the real life experience of public school. Lily herself had been just fine at Hamilton Elementary, even with the fragrance of chalk dust puffing through the classrooms and those awkward molded wood desks impossible for a left-hander. But Rowan needed more protection than Lily's parents could ever have imagined, more than Lily, back then at least, could have imagined. Until Cassie, of course. But maybe no one and nothing could have protected her. Sometimes in the twisted memories of Lily's brain, two of the most important people in her life merged into one. Bye, Mama! Rowan, waving goodbye, was almost too far away to hear. Lily waved back from the front seat of her black BMW, an indulgence, but she needed Ro to ride in a safe car. As Graydon's doors closed, her daughter securely inside. Petra, the nanny, would pick her up at 4 as usual, when Lily had to be at work. Such a juggle, Lily thought, pulling into Channel 6's chain-link back-fence parking lot. Kind of a first-world juggle, though, she had to admit. The heavy metal gate lifted open as she inserted her key card into the slot and aimed her car at the parking place marked with her name. Was that a good idea? Anyone who came into the lot would know exactly whose car this was and find her license plate number. Another example of celebrities' pitfalls. First world problem, kiddo, she told herself again, this time out loud. She took a sip from the insulated coffee mug in the console cup holder, feeling more relaxed in the fenced-in lot. She'd talked to a therapist about her constant suspicions, her hyper-assessment of every situation, but it hadn't taken too many sessions for the professorial Dr. Rones to latch onto the Cassie story. You don't like surprises, I can understand, the psychologist had told her, looking over his wire rims. He'd made a note on a yellow pad with a fancy black fountain pen. Perhaps that's why you became a reporter. You always need to know the answers. Sometimes fear can be channeled, and quite successfully, into curiosity. And as a reporter, Lily, you're allowed to question, required to. As such, you've made a prudent life choice. He'd pointed his pen at her. What do you think? She'd actually thought, get me out of here. Respected doctor or not, he knew who she was and where she worked, and even one inadvertent word to a tabloid reporter could give Lily another hashtag. Hashtag psycho Lily, maybe, or hashtag crazy Lily. She had to be careful who she talked to. Even perfectly trustworthy doctors. Nobody was perfectly trustworthy. Could be, Stephen, she'd told Dr. Rones, and then, even though he was probably right, she canceled her future appointments. She didn't need some wavy-haired guy in a tweed blazer to tell her how the loss of Cassie, the yearning to know what had happened, had changed her life. Still, she didn't want to infect Rowan with her own persistent fear that the world was a dangerous place, even though it was. Being in a newsroom made it all the worse. The news was always bad. That's what made it news. But kids should be happy and free, feel safe. She'd protect Rowan from it all as long as she could. Lily switched her mind to the day to come. She'd tried to forget about those lilies, that bouquet. She'd finally given them to Petra, who had swooped them up, vase and all, to take to her over the garage apartment. Out of sight, out of mind. Maybe she could make that philosophy work. For flowers, at least. The green numbers on the dashboard clock changed to 10:15. She'd be late for work, but Greer, her producer, would have to live with it. Lily was still unhappy about her producer's pushy attitude at the taping yesterday. She was well aware that the crew had taped Rowan's face, but she'd deal with that later. Greer would be no place without me, the thought crossed her mind. Lily always got the feeling that her producer was vaguely critical of everything Lily had or did or said or wore. Greer was always pushing her to be more careful, more special, more perfect. Perfection is in the perception, Greer constantly reminded her. You need to keep people loving you. She supposed Greer was right. Television was infinitely fickle. And replacing Greer would be a major pain. And if Greer insisted on trying to produce Lily's entire life, well, what did it matter? as long as they kept succeeding. She looked at the cell phone still in its holder on the BMW's dash, still stubbornly silent. Smith was the more important concern. He'd said he'd call. Coffee in hand, she began to gather her laptop and tote bag and, not even looking, reached out for her cell. When it buzzed, she flinched and grabbed it so fast it flipped and dropped onto the carpeted floor. She twisted down to retrieve the buzzing thing, hitting the lid of her coffee on the center console, which dumped milky liquid onto the seat beside her. Damn it, she muttered. The phone buzzed again. Ignoring the spreading coffee, she dived for the cell, through a scattering of cookie crumbs and dog hair, finally scrabbling her fingertips around it, and pushed the green circle. Hello? The murky coffee on the black leather seat next to her began to seep into the decorative white stitching. I hope I have not caught you at an inopportune time, the voice said. Smith. Not at all. Lily scanned the parking lot, couldn't help it. How did he know to call after she'd parked and turned off the car? He might even be in the unfenced visitors lot in front of the station, ducked down in his seat. Maybe he waited for her to drive in, watched for her. Would he have had her in her sights when she got out, when she went into the building? It wouldn't take a genius. She arrived at the same time, give or take, most days. Left at the same time, too. So pleased to hear from you. Lily kept her voice calm and congenial, but focused at the car's windshield. No one in the driveway, no one on the redwood bench under the 3 rangy Norfolk pines, no one in the wide sidewalk that led to the yellow brick Channel 6 building. You said you'd hit a roadblock yesterday. Indeed, Smith said. But before we get to that, I'm hearing there appears to be a situation, shall we say, at the Graydon School. A situation? Lily tucked the phone against her shoulder, yanked on her seatbelt, and punched the ignition, shifted into reverse, gunned it. At Graydon? What kind of situation? Lily pulled up to the metal gate. The striped bar now closed her in. I cannot be sure, the voice said. Shall I call and check for you? Let you know? She jammed her keycard into the slot. Missed. The car hit the outside of the metal card reader, then spun to the pavement. Damn it. Lily? She slammed the phone into the holder on the dash, pushed open her door to retrieve the card. Can you just hold on, please? Lily yelled, making sure he could hear her. Can you tell me what's going on? She asked, keeping her voice loud enough for him to hear. Do I need to call 911? She scraped the card from the asphalt, slammed the car door closed, and tried again to get the card inside the reader. Smith knew he must know her daughter was at Graydon. This wasn't a coincidence, and whatever the hell was happening was not a coincidence either. This is exactly what she feared, exactly the fragile boundaries of her life disintegrating with no key cards needed to invade her space or Rowan's. Nothing like that, Smith told her. I merely thought. With a clang and a wheeze, the gate finally opened. Lily hit the accelerator. You might be grateful to be contacted. I am calling to assure you there is no need to worry. Lily couldn't decide if she loved his voice or hated it, wanted to hear it or wanted not to. Without him, she'd be inside Channel 6, oblivious to Graydon, where her daughter was, and all the other children and teachers and what situation? She heard her tone go harsh. He was toying with her. She couldn't allow that. She would not be manipulated. Mr. Smith, what situation? I assume you are on your way, Smith said. I need to go now, but I will be in touch. She checked the rear view. Was he following her? He knew Rowan was at Graydon. There was no doubt about that. Lily herself had watched her daughter go inside. Maybe Smith had watched too, maybe from the school's parking lot, just like he might have been watching Lily from the Channel 6 lot. From now on, she would never leave, never budge, until she saw those heavy doors close her child safely inside. Maybe not even then. Wait, Mr. Smith, thank you so much, Lily said, trying to soften the edge out of her voice. I'd be so grateful if you would just tell me. She'd accelerated almost through a red light. Graydon was 15 minutes away, 15 minutes of highway, then eternal suburban stoplights and crosswalks, and who knew what other obstacles. Was she hearing a siren? She buzzed down her window. No. Yes? No. Hello? She hated the power he had over her. With the click of a cell phone button, he could help her or hurt her, tell her something true or not true. She hated him. She loved him. She needed him. And right now, so did Rowan. Can you hear me? She asked. She needed to call Headmistress Glover. Now, Rowan didn't have a phone, of course. None of the students their age did. There was no way to contact Roe except through Mary Rose Glover, or by hurtling through the front door, which Lily was ready to do. She heard a dial tone. He'd hung up. What? Lily didn't have time to be annoyed. She engaged the Bluetooth. Call Graydon, she said, keeping her eyes on the road. She sped into a rotary, careened out the other side, heard the phone connect, heard someone pick up. This is Lily Atwood, she began. I need... This is the Graydon School, the recorded message talked over her. Your call is important to us. Please leave a... And that's the end of chapter 7 of Her Perfect Life. Thank you. And I hope you are intrigued and enjoyed it and got a little taste of what my books are like.
Awesome. That was fantastic. I just want to invite the live viewers on Facebook or YouTube to please leave your questions in the comments. We'll take a look at those, pop those up onto the screen. But in the meantime, if I may indulge myself in some questions that I had for you.
Sure.
So I was really curious. You just when you talked about what segments you were going to read from the book, you went with the prologue, and then you picked chapter 7, and that was because people potentially picking up in the bookstore maybe want to preview the first few pages of chapter 1. How do you decide the specific pieces that you were like? Why was it chapter 7 and not chapter 5? Were there certain elements you were looking for in the reading?
Oh, such a good question. Yes, I wanted there to be stakes. I wanted you to understand how Lily thinks. I wanted you to be aware of the relationship between Lily and Rowan, how much Lily actually loves Rowan, how much he really cares about her. The prologue is connected to chapter 7 in a way, because in the prologue you learn about Cassie, her sister Cassie, who is missing. Something happened to Cassie. And in chapter 7, that's sort of reaffirmed through the sort of the ramifications of that loss that Lily has. It's so profound that she's gone to therapy over it. She's aware that she somehow transfers her fear of the world to little Rowan, and still understands intellectually as a mom that she needs to let Rowan have a good time. She doesn't want to overwhelm her and smother her, but on the other hand, she knows what can happen to a child out of nowhere. She also knows that she, as the hashtag perfect Lily, is under terrific scrutiny, that everybody knows her, and you heard her gauge whether it's really a good idea to put her name on her parking place. I mean, we don't think about that we don't think about that in our real lives, but celebrities think about that. Television people think about that. As a reporter, I go to work every day and I have a parking space with my name on it, and it's crossed my mind, is this a good idea? What if somebody wants to mess with my car? And we can talk about all that later. So the reason that I chose that was to illustrate Lily's relationship with Rowan, to reiterate the importance of Lily's remaining damage from her sister Cassie being missing, to let you know that Cassie is still missing, to let you know that she has a contentious relationship with her producer Greer, and that Mr. Smith has been calling her with information about good stories, but now suddenly Mr. Smith is calling her with information about herself. I mean, Lily is a reporter and relies on sources to give her story tips about other people's secrets. But in this case, this particular source has begun to tell Lily secrets about herself. And I thought that was just so chilling and so possible. I mean, that could really happen, because we know that Lily has a secret. We know from reading the jacket that Lily has a secret that she is trying to hide. And here it is, the Jaws music. Here comes the secret potentially being revealed. And what is Lily going to do? We also know, and forgive me for going on about this, but we also know that Lily is confident and tough. she's not going to whine and say, oh my golly, what do I do? She puts the car in drive and guns the accelerator and goes through the red light to get to her daughter. And she talks about, barreling through the front door, and that we know nothing is going to stop her, that she takes charge of her situation, and she manipulates Mr. Smith, doesn't she? She knows when to pull back a little bit and be really sweet, and she knows when to, say, tell me this. And my final thing about this, as readers, we don't quite know which personality Lily really is, because part of a reporter's life is just because it's us, kind of manipulation. As a reporter, we want you to tell us things, and we sometimes have to be kind of tough about it and aggressive. And sometimes we have to be kind of persuasive about it. So who is a reporter really? They only really want something. They only really want something. I say we only really want something. We only really want a good story. We only really want information. And how far we'll go to get it is sort of what Lily is all about.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm just going to pop up a comment from Sandy. It says, great job.
Thank you.
Cannot wait to read it. So that was cool. And
Thank
of course, Sarah did actually was another person who said, yes, please read more. So thank you for doing a second. So let's talk a little bit about your life as a reporter and in the spotlight and as a celebrity, but then also how that translates to, particularly in this text where there's obviously, I mean, the research was relatively easy about Lily's role, right? You kind of had some insights.
I kind of had some insights, exactly. I love writing about the world of television, because as a television reporter, one of the things that you will never know when you watch my stories on TV is you'll never know how I really felt about it. You'll never know if I was afraid at any point in the story. You never know how I feel about the people that I've interviewed in the story. You never know if I was tired or happy or sad or hungry, or if I worked for 6 weeks on this story or for 20 minutes on this story. You won't know if somebody told me to do the story or if I pushed to do the story myself. You won't really know any of those personal emotional feelings about the creation of the story. You also won't know what I left out. You won't know what I know that didn't fit into the story, or what I decided not to tell you. You don't know that. So writing about television people, writing about reporters like Lily Atwood, gives me an opportunity to say to you, you watch TV news, here's what it's really like being on the other side of that camera. And here's how what goes on TV, it comes out the other end. This is the tip of the iceberg. What's on TV, emotionally, morally, ethically, legally, there's so many things that you don't know. And in books like Her Perfect Life, I'm allowed to fictionally, but with a lot of, with 43 years of experience, let you in on that process. And that's really fun for me to finally be able to tell somebody, since it's not about me, it's about Lily Atwood, who is a million times more famous than I will ever be. But I know what it's like to work with a producer. I know what it's like to work on deadline. I know what it's like to have a story that you really want to put on the air, but the legal department won't let you. All those kinds of things. So I want to give you this inside look at what it's like to work in television, for better or worse,
Right. And I was going to say, how many more Emmys do you need to win to get to Lily's level of fame? Is that?
That's so funny. I have 37. You want to see that?
It's like only 37 Emmys. Yeah. Oh, there they are. Oh, awesome. Thank you for tilting.
I don't usually tilt the screen like that.
Yeah.
I don't, it's funny. I don't know how many Emmys Lily needs. I love her, but this is the thing, and you put your finger on it, Mark, about being a reporter. To be a really successful reporter, you have to work all the time, to the detriment of really everything else in your life. I've been a full-time reporter for 43 years. I'm part-time now because I've decided to, I guess you should call it, declare victory in television and move on to being a best-selling author, which is great. I mean, I didn't start writing till very late in life. So I'm sort of moving on like Serena right now to get a new experience. How did she put it? Not retiring, but evolving. And I think that She's a way better. I mean, I can't even play tennis for 1 minute. I could not hit the ball back to you. Anyway, a television reporter has to be very devoted, very, very focused all the time. And Lily understands that. It's all about ambition because unlike in the world of novels, you know, your book and Sarah's book and Sandy's book, all of in Randy's books, somebody can buy all of those books and we can all win. But in television, only one person can win. Only one person is going to get the story first. It's very zero sum in television. So it's in television, it's all about getting the scoop and all about winning and how far you'll go to have that happen. And Lily understands that perfectly because I understand that.
Oh, love that. Love that. I was gonna comment about the fact that Lily has a secret, and I was looking just before this started. When I met you at Pikes Peak Writers Conference many years ago, I've got this beautiful signed copy of The Wrong Girl, and I have to show off. I've got your signature. It's almost like we're hanging out together.
Yeah,
But
that was great. I have to tell you all, at the Pikes Peak Writers Conference, I got the worst case of what's it called?
oh, because of the elevation, yeah,
Yeah,
it was
elevation sickness. Is that what it's called? It's something like that. Something like that. Wow, I had
yeah.
never thought that that was actually real. Somebody in the comments tell me what that's called. I had never really thought that that was real.
Wow, like the dehydration and the lightheadedness and
Yeah, I was
wow.
busy and wacky, and I had no idea where I was or what I was doing. It was pretty funny. It went away in about a day, but that was quite an experience. Other than that, I loved it, and it's interesting that you were there, and I remember that.
Yeah.
I love that book, The Wrong
But
Girl.
that was another secret, right? Like that was a family secret as opposed to Lily's secret. So secrets seem to be a common theme. Like there's often something hidden or not shared, that sort of thing. That
Oh
seems
my
to
God,
be.
you're so right about this. Secrets are the engine that drives every good crime fiction novel. There has to be secrets. Who has a secret? What's the secret? What will happen if the secret gets told? Who's going to tell the secret? Why would they tell the secret? I mean, in an early cover even of Her Perfect Life, the tagline on it was, "No one tells a secret without a reason," right? Because that's why. So
Yeah.
I work very hard and I'm very conscious of giving everybody in my books a secret. And you may not know that at the beginning of the book, but
Right.
that's really what drives the novel. You know, because we were talking in class today that one of the big motivations that people have is self-protection and keeping their own secrets. And if that wall that they've put up, if that obstacle that they put up starts to get attacked, they're going to fight back to keep their secret because it could ruin their life. And whether it's a good secret or a bad secret, everybody has secrets. Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I wanted to pop up a couple comments from, and again, I can't see who the user is, but somebody from Facebook said, "Fabulous! I love your
Um,
voice," and I have to agree. Great, great readings as well. And Randy from When Words Collide just said, "Hey, Randy is intrigued." So there you go.
Thank you. Well, Randy,
Um,
how are you even awake now? You have worked so hard on this conference. You are, every time I email you, you answer me right back, and you've got all these people and all this organization and all these websites and all these URLs, and you're just keeping all the plates spinning. So it is incredibly impressive. I hope you all are
exactly.
having
And
fun
there's
at the conference.
Well, the other thing too is I know you've been working hard all day as well because you were teaching workshops, you're doing the reading, and then I want to be conscious. I want to make sure to give you a break between now and the keynotes that'll be coming up in just about 20 minutes
Yeah,
or
that's a
so.
good
So, but I want to say, Hank, thank you so much. This was fantastic. I love the reading. I want to remind viewers to check out your books, your latest book, obviously, Her Perfect Life, as well as your many other amazing thrillers over at hankphillippyryan.com. Please request her books at your local library. Ask for them at your favorite local bookstore to support those bookstores. And of course, they are available through major retailers such as Amazon. This is our author page over on Amazon. And Hank, thank you again so much for hanging out with me tonight.
I loved it that you all find me on Facebook, Hank Phillippi Ryan Author, and Twitter at Hank P. Ryan, and Instagram at Hank P. Ryan. Please come follow me. Lots of fun stuff on my pages. And go to that website that they just put up, and there it is. Oh, that's so clever. And sign up for my newsletter. Click on Contact and sign up for my newsletter. And if you email me via my newsletter, via my website, that email comes right to me with nobody in between us. So I would love to hear from you.
Awesome. And thanks again, Hank. I will see you very shortly in a very similar green room when we do the keynotes for When Words Collide.
Thank you, Mark. It's been marvelous to talk with you. Wonderful to see you all.
Take care.